Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Cooking with Grandma. If you're new to my channel, thank you for stopping by. I hope you like what I have to show you, and make sure you hit the like and subscribe and ring the bell when I'm going to make some more. If you're my regular viewers and subscribers, thanks for coming back. Today I'm going to make you a meal. We're going to start with, where I have two things we're going to kind of go in tandem. We're going to work together with the two things, because whenever you make a dinner, you always want to make it so everything is done at the same time. You don't want your meat sitting there already all cooked and you still have your vegetables to cook, or vice versa. You don't want things getting cold. So today we're going to be making sweet and savory meatballs and green beans and potatoes. So I'm going to kind of combine the two because we're going to work together, like I said. So for the green beans and the potatoes, we need 8 slices of bacon diced. So I'm going to do that and get it in the pan. And while that's cooking, I'm going to start on the meatballs. First of all, we're going to get a nice sharp knife. Go, and we're going to take out 8 slices. Now these recipes, you kind of have to judge it. It says it makes 8 servings, but you have to kind of go by what you think a serving size is. Like a grown man or a very growing teenage boy is going to eat more than an elderly person or a little kid. So you want to just judge it. Whenever if it calls for something, I always look and I think, okay, I'm going to add a little bit more to it, because that's not going to be enough for all of us. This one sounds like it's going to be enough, because there's going to be, let's see, 2, 4, maybe 5 or 6 of us to have this meal. So it sounds like it's going to be enough. I can always make another batch if I find that it's not enough. 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I got 6, 7. That's 8 slices of bacon here. Get the last one out of the package. Okay, and it says to dice it. 8 slices of bacon diced, and then we're going to cook it in the frying pan. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on my board and turn it. I'm just going to give it, just roughly chop it. You know what a dice is, just a small, you want it small pieces. I'm going to I have my electric frying pan for this, because we have to add the potatoes and the water and everything else into the same pan. So you need a deeper pan. I've never made this before. I've had this recipe for a long time and I've never tried it. So we're all going to learn together on this one, as well as the sweet and savory meatballs. My mom had given me the recipe a while ago, and I just haven't really. I was cleaning out my my recipe box. I was going through it and kind of getting rid of some recipes that I know I'm never going to make, and I was recopying some that kind of got a little messy, from cooking and stuff. So just recopying and freshen them up. And I came across these two, and well, you know what? Let's try them. It's not anything that takes a lot of time, and it's summertime here, so you don't want to be having your oven on and cooking too much, because it's so hot. So these two recipes sound like they're pretty easy. So there we go. We're going to get our bacon sauteing. You just want to cook it on low heat. You want it to get cooked so it's limp. You don't want it all the way brown. Just kind of break it up a little bit. Make sure we have no big clumps. So now I'm going to turn my board over. This is one of those reversible kind of cutting pads, because I don't want the raw bacon with the next step. So while that's cooking, actually I'm going to prepare my potatoes and beans just to get that done, and then I'll do the meatballs. So now what you need is 1.5 pounds of green beans. So we got these right fresh out of the garden. You just snap the ends off like that, and then these we break into thirds. I'm going to go ahead and get a little bowl and put them in. And these little ends here, I'll feed to the chickens tomorrow for their breakfast. And the hamsters, they love them. Well, you don't, there's no waste. You just break off the ends, break them into thirds, and put them in a bowl. These sound like pretty easy recipes, very easy to read and understand, and not a lot of, there's sort of a lot of ingredients in the meatball one, but there's nothing that's going to cost you a lot when you go to the grocery store. It's most of it is just basic ingredients that you probably already have in your kitchen, in your cupboards. So that's what we like to do. I don't like to do recipes that I've got to go out and buy a bunch of ingredients that I may or may not use again. I mean, if you want to do the recipe again sometime, but it depends on how far in between you make the same recipe, because you know, you don't want things, you want to buy a big jar or something that you might use once or twice and it spoils before you can use it again. Kind of, it's just waste of money. So I usually stick to recipes that I either have the ingredients or very easily to get, and something that I know I can use again for other recipes. So here we go, got the beans. This is really nothing. You just break the ends off and snap them. You can hear the crunch. That means they're nice and fresh. So this is not going to take that long. I was going to do most of this ahead of time, and I started to. I got a few things done ahead of time, but this is one of the things that I should have done before I did my video, but that's okay. So now you all know how to take beans out of the garden. So you just, there's your bean, you just snap the end off, break it off like that, and then snap it right in threes. And they're nice and crisp and delicious looking. Fresh picked yesterday out of the garden. You can go and buy beans at the store, of course. I don't know how well this would work with canned or frozen because you are cooking them with the potatoes. So I guess if you would use canned or frozen beans, you would put them in right at the end because they're already cooked, and you would just put them in to heat it through. You wouldn't want to, you know, cook them the whole time like you would with the fresh like this. If you don't have access to fresh, or if you don't have a garden, or if you just don't want to buy fresh, which you can buy now in the stores. This is the time of year that you kind of buy all these things. And, you know, but if you don't do it, if you don't like that kind of thing, then go ahead and get canned or frozen and just put it in at the very end, just when you're about to serve it. Just long enough for them to heat up, but not cook. So I'm going to cut these few up here and give that bacon a stir. I don't want it to get too done. It just says until it's limp, because it's going to have some more cooking time. Give it a little bit of a stir. It's almost, I turned the heat way down low. I know with bacon you're supposed to have it up high, but because I want to cook it slow till I get everything else prepared, and I don't want it to crisp, so I'm keeping the burner on low. So here we go, almost done. Okay, so next I'm going to peel and quarter my potatoes. It says in the recipe 1 pound, which is about 4 small. Now these are kind of exceptionally small, so I am going to go ahead and use a few more because, like I said, it says it serves 6, but you quarter a potato, you're getting 4 pieces. You know, you want, if you do 4 potatoes, that's 12 pieces. That's being somebody's only going to get like 2 little pieces of potato. So I'm going to add a couple more potatoes to this batch. Chop them, peel them, cut them in quarters, easy peasy. And I'm just going to keep going on with this. So we have to, after we're done, we string the beans, cut the ends off and quarter them, or cut them in half. Cut the potatoes, wash them and cut them in quarters. And then we're going to add the potatoes, the beans, the salt and the water to the bacon, and we're going to heat it to boiling. Then we're going to cover it, lower the heat, and cook until the vegetables are tender. So while they're cooking, I'm going to go ahead and make my meatballs. Because it's on low heat, so it's going to take probably a good 10-15 minutes for the potatoes and the beans to cook. Okay. So there's 4, 8, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 18 chunks of potato. So divide that by 6. 3, 6, 9, 3, 6, 9, 12. That's enough for each person to have 3 chunks of potato. Okay, so I've got the bacon done. This is what it looks like. It's just limply cooked. It's not brown. I mean, it's brown, but it's not like real crispy like if you were making, you know, bacon and eggs or BLT. So now I'm going to that. I finished cutting up my potatoes. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the beans, the potatoes, and salt and water to the bacon. So in goes the beans, all cut up and pour everything, and potatoes are going in. This is why I'm using my electric skillet. It's nice and big and deep, and it'll cook evenly. I have my regular skillet on the stovetop skillet for my meatballs. We're going to use that for the meatballs. So to that I need to have 1/2 cup of water. That's a little too much. So that's another tip. When you measure something liquid, put it down on the counter, let it settle, because I thought it was 1/2 cup and it was actually a little bit more, almost 3/4. So there's 1/2 cup. So add the beans, potatoes, salt, and water to the bacon. So it's not very much water, that's for sure. 1/2 cup. And a teaspoon of salt. Sprinkle it all around there. Okay. Now, it really doesn't seem like very much water. I do have some extra potatoes, so I think I might just go ahead and add a little bit more water, because I kind of doubled the amount of potatoes that it called for, just because I didn't think it was going to be enough for us. So we're going to just give this a little stir. Now I'm going to turn the heat up for a minute. It says to bring it to a boil. Heat to boiling, and when it boils, then we cover it and lower the heat. So I'm going to bring it up, turn up the heat, and let that start to boil. And while that is doing that, I'm going to start with my meatballs, because that's it. That's done. After that, you have to add, you have to sprinkle over a teaspoon of flour and add a cup of, or 2/3 cup of milk, and stir it till it's just a little bit thick. And there is green beans and potatoes. We'll have to look at that when it's done. So now for the sweet and savory meatballs, I am doubling this recipe because 1 pound is not going to be enough for us. This makes 16 meatballs, so really they're not, I'm just going to double it. So everything I'm going to read to you is doubled. So 1 pound ground beef, I'm using 2 pounds. So 1/4 cup of, it says finely chopped onion. I am out of onions. I totally forgot to put them on my grocery list, so I'm going to use onion powder instead. It'll work just as well. So that I'm going to use 2-3 teaspoonfuls. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. Whenever it calls for, it calls for a fresh onion, a whole onion. If you don't want to put onions in there, you can substitute it for onion powder, or garlic. If you don't like garlic, you can put garlic powder. Just remember that the condensed stuff, the powder, is concentrated, so you don't need as much. Okay, there goes my onion. So now we need, I better should read the instructions here. Mix the beef, the crumbs, the onion, the egg, and the garlic. Okay, so 1/4 cup of breadcrumbs. Grab the right measuring cup here. 1/4 cup. There we go. 1/4 cup of breadcrumbs. Beef, crumbs, onion, egg. So we put the egg in. One egg. And the garlic. Okay, so it's 1 small clove of garlic minced. This time I'm going to add the actual garlic clove rather than the garlic powder, because I have fresh garlic. So you put this down on your board. Let's see, get that where you can see it. Where's my garlic cube? There we go. You put it on your board and you put the knife down, smack it, and that just makes the skin come right off. Of course, it's going to make a liar out of me. It didn't work. There we go. That did it. I didn't hit it hard enough. So then you're going to peel that. I'm just going to put that skin over there. And to mince it, you cut the little ends off. It's like the ends of an onion. You don't want it. You cut it really, really small. And then the trick to mincing garlic, I mean, you can go like this all day long and you'll get it small, but you want it minced. You want it really, really, really tiny because you don't want big chunks of garlic. So the trick, I believe I showed it into one of my other videos. You put some salt on your cutting board, not a lot. It doesn't hurt the flavor of the garlic any. Put the garlic on the board. You put your garlic, after it's all chopped up pretty small, you put that into the salt and take the side of your knife and just rub it. And you rub it like this and just push it back and smush it. And keep doing that 2 or 3 times. Give it a little chop. Get it all into a nice pile. Piece of skin, we don't want that. And get it all into a nice pile and just give it a rub with your knife. Just like this. Hold the knife down and rub it. And there you go. Minced garlic. And there it is, right on the end of the knife. So we're going to throw that into our beef mixture. It's really easy. You can buy minced garlic that's already pre-minced. It comes in jars. That's perfectly fine too. We just grow our own garlic, so I like to use fresh. Okay, so we're going to mix. We're going to put eggs and garlic. We're going to mix this all together. Yeah. Okay, my potatoes and beans are boiling, so I'm going to turn down the heat way down. Give it a little bit of a stir. Look over here quick enough, and I saw they were boiling, and I didn't even realize it. This looks pretty good. Bacon all in there, beans and potatoes. Good. Okay, so I'm going to put the cover on, and that has to go until the potatoes and beans are tender. So I'm going to say like 10 minutes, and we'll check them. So now back to our meatballs. So we've got the beef, the onion powder, the breadcrumbs, the egg, and the garlic. So what we're going to do is we're going to brown the meatballs in 1 tablespoon of garlic. Or sorry, 1 tablespoon of shortening. Garlic on the brain here. I'm going to put a tablespoon of shortening in there. Give that a second to melt. Get this more mixed up. And now I have to go back because I just realized what I did. I'm glad I realized it before I started making these meatballs. I said I was going to double the recipe, and then I didn't. So I need another 1/4 of a cup of breadcrumbs. That goes in. It's easy to, you're kind of thinking of just reading the recipe just like it is, and you're forgetting. So I'm going to grab another egg out of the fridge. Egg and another teaspoonful of onion powder. I'm going to put that away. Yep, there's another teaspoon of onion powder. There we go. And I got to chop up another clove of garlic. These don't, it doesn't take long, and if you catch, you make a mistake like that, I mean, it really wouldn't hurt anything. It just wouldn't be as seasoned as it should be because you're using 2 pounds of meat instead of 1, so it would be like half seasoned, I guess you could say. So I'm just going to go ahead and mince this other garlic clove up. Get it all smushed up here. Butter's gonna burn. Move that off the heat. Let's turn that burner way down. I know we have a new smoke detector, and it's a high efficiency one, and just from the heat of the burner, just by having the burner on high and cooking something, it goes off. So there we go. We're going to put in the rest of the minced garlic, and now we have double. We have the breadcrumbs, the onion powder, the egg, and the garlic. So once this is all mixed up, you make it into 16 meatballs. So hopefully I'll get 32, because I am doubling it. That's going to give everybody, you know, a few meatballs each. If you want to make them bigger instead and just give like 2 or 3 to a person, that's fine. But these are probably supposed to be fairly small, because 1 pound of hamburger to make 16 meatballs, I'm sure they must be pretty small. There we go. That is all mixed up. So now I'm just going to go ahead and make up my meatballs and put them in my pan. This is pretty easy, really, so far. I'm going to set this over here off the heat. I'm going to go ahead and put the meatballs in while it's off the heat, and then that way they can all cook together. Because by the time I get done with the 30th meatball, the first 5 or 6 are going to be cooked, and the rest aren't. So we're going to do this. You always have to time your cooking. That's one of the big things that I had to learn, kind of sometimes the hard way. You have to do the things that take the longest first. And so, you know, if you're cooking a steak on a frying pan, depending on how you like your steak, even if you like it well done, it's only going to take 8 or 10 minutes per, you know, 5 or so or 6 minutes or so per side. So if you cook all your whole steak and then put your potatoes on, there's another 10 minutes. You know, your steak's going to get cold, and you reheat it, but then it gets tough. And if you like it like medium or rare, and if you put it back on the heat, it's going to cook some more. So therefore, you know, you're kind of out of luck. So because you're not going to have the cook that you want on it. Oh, okay. These are doing really easy to make. They're just, it's like a time-consuming restaurant, you know, restaurant recipe. You just kind of have to add the different ingredients and step here and a step there. It's not really that bad. I'm making these ahead of time so I can, when I get done, because taking care of Dino Brody, who had an operation on his foot, and he now has a cast, and so I kind of have to help him out doing things like normal things that he uses a wheelchair to get around. And then my mother-in-law is very elderly, and we have to take turns taking care of her. So if I go over there like in the afternoon and stay till supper time, I make my dinners ahead of time, cook them ahead of time, put them in the fridge, and then they just have to be reheated. So then I don't have to rush home and try to make something really quickly. This way it's all done, and you know, it's everything's good, so you don't have to rush. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 19, 20, 21, 22. Okay, so I've got 24 meatballs. I think it's going to be just right. They're not real small, but they're not overly too big either. 6. I'm going to turn my frying pan down just a little more. Still sounds like it's boiling in there, and I don't want them to boil. I mean, you can, like obviously you're boiling potatoes and beans, but it says to keep it on low. Then they just kind of simmer cook, and they don't get mushy or anything. I might get more than 32, which is fine, but just fill the pan up, and we're going to put them on there, and they have to cook until they're brown. Let's see, brown meatballs, that's all. So it's, you know, it's going to take a few minutes. I'll just get them all going here. My pan is getting very full, so I'm going to go ahead and put these first batch on the stove. Turn it up a little bit now, and I'll make my other ones, because now that there's a full pan, and it's not going to take me that long to make another like 5 here, 4 or 5. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. I got 36 meatballs, so instead of 32. So I may have made them, you know, a titch smaller than what it would call for, but that's okay. It's not that bad. We're going to put the last one in here, and I'm going to turn the heat up because I don't want them to take forever. Clear this away, and I'll get ready for the next step. Wash my hands here a minute because handling the raw beef, I don't want to be touching anything else. New bowl, new cutting board, the whole bit. You don't want to cross-contaminate. I mean, raw chicken is the worst one. I mean, you don't want to be doing it with raw beef either, but still, it's worse with chicken. So after the meatballs are cooked, are browned, we're going to pour off the extra grease. And then we're going to add the remaining ingredients, except the rice or noodles, because it says to serve with rice or noodles, but I'm serving it with our potatoes. So the rest of the ingredients are a can of mushroom soup and 1/2 cup of drained chopped tomatoes. And I'm going to chop, I think my mom meant canned tomatoes, but she said that she has made this recipe with fresh tomatoes. You just cut them up and chop them up and measure them. So we need 1/2 cup. Measuring cup here. So while those meatballs are cooking, I'm just going to get all this prepared. That's what you do in recipes. You do steps. You start one thing and you get the next part of it going. Now, if I was using a can of tomatoes, I can simply open it up and drain it. You know, it wouldn't be that big of a step, but you can still do it and get it ready. You combine all the ingredients that you need together in a bowl, or if you want to, or just line it up all on the counter and then just put them in the pan one at a time, mix it all through, and you're good to go. Now this is easy. Just simply cut up a tomato, chop it up. These are not, unfortunately, from the garden. They're not quite ready in the garden yet, so we do have to buy tomatoes. The cucumbers are ready, the beans are ready. The tomatoes are on the vines, but they're still green, so it'll be another few days or a week, and then we'll have nice, fresh tomatoes to go along with it. Okay, let me just go ahead and measure this out and see if I've got 1/2 cup yet. That was 1 tomato. So it's going to be pretty close to being 1/2 cup, that's for sure. Okay, see, it's 1/2 cup. Now, I do have to put another one in because I am doubling this recipe. So I need 1 cup of diced. You cut the end off of it, you don't want that. So 1 medium-sized tomato was what you needed. I will put this recipe in the description, but I will put it as written. The only reason I'm doubling it, like I said, is because there's 6 of us, and 2 are grown men with big appetites, and 1 is a 13-year-old boy with a very big appetite. So we want to make sure there's enough. I don't like serving, making a recipe and then like, oh geez, that's kind of skimpy servings, I'm sorry, and then you're still hungry, you ask for seconds and there isn't seconds. So yeah, I know when I ordered got the HelloFresh meals, I had a free offer to get the meals, and they were very, very good, but they sent you just the amount of ingredients to call for, and it said serves 4 or serves 5. Well, it did, but it was small servings. There, my tomatoes are chopped. That's ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and open my can of soup. You're going to hear a little bit of noise in a second. Well, excuse me for that. Yep. All right off. Okay. So now after when they're browned, which they're doing really well, you have to add the remaining ingredients, which is the half of the chopped tomatoes. So I'm going to go ahead and put this all in a bowl instead of step by step dropping it in the pan. So we're going to put the tomatoes, and it says 2 tablespoons of vinegar. Don't forget, these are sweet and savory. So sweet and there we go. So we're going to put 4 tablespoons. 1, 2, 3, 4 tablespoons of vinegar. And it says 2 tablespoons, so I need 4 tablespoons of brown sugar. 1, 2, and I'm out of brown sugar, so I'm going to put the last 2 tablespoons of white. It'll be alright, it won't hurt it. I knew there was something else to add to my grocery list, and that was it. And so a can of golden creamy mushroom soup. Now I'm going to open the second can. Again, I almost forgot that I was doubling this recipe. I'm going to turn my meatballs over. Let them brown on all sides. You want them brown so they're pretty much cooked. You're going to leave these other ingredients in, so they're still going to cook a little bit, but you want them brown all the way through. I'm just going to turn these guys over. Nice. You usually wouldn't put any shortening in the bottom of your pan because hamburgers have a lot of grease. You know, they don't really stick, but it called for it, and I put it in, and I'm glad, because sometimes meatballs, even though they have a good grease content to them, fat content, they do stick, and these aren't sticking at all. So these are just about browned all the way. So by the time I mix up my ingredients in the bowl here, they will be. I'm going to give my beans and beans and potatoes a little stir and check to see the doneness. No, not quite. They're still okay. Just put the top back on. And okay, now I've got in my bowl here, I've got the double the amount of tomatoes. I've got the double of vinegar, the brown sugar, the soup, and now 2 teaspoons of soy sauce, which is going to be 4 teaspoons. So 3 teaspoons is a tablespoon. So I'm going to put a tablespoon and then a teaspoon. And a dash of pepper. So I'll do 2 dashes. There we go. So we're going to mix all this up. Let's see. Add the remaining ingredients. Mix well. Cook over low heat for 20 minutes, stirring occasionally. So my meatballs are all the way brown. I'm going to bring the pan over and show everybody what they look like. There are our nice brown meatballs. I'm going to, right in this cup here, my measuring cup, my glass measuring cup, I'm going to really carefully tip this pan and drain some of the fat and try not to lose my meatballs. There goes a couple of them. That's a given. When you tip a pan like that, they're going to fall. There we go. There wasn't very much fat. This was a nice lean ground beef. So I'll just pick the ones up that fell. One fell right in the container with the fat. So, and seriously, that's like, I got like 1/8 of a cup of grease. So that's good. That shows you how nice and lean they are. So now to that, I'm going to pour in my soup and soy sauce and brown sugar and tomato mixture. Stir that all in. You want to be really super careful when you're stirring these, otherwise you're going to have you're just going to have chunks of ground beef. You won't have meatballs because they're very soft. And if you stir too hard, I'm going to use a wooden spoon and just kind of gently stir it in, fold it, because you don't want to break your meatballs. I'm just going to lift them and move them around this way like this, just to get that sauce that we just put in all around. So we're going to put this back on the heat. And we're going to mix it. We're going to cook over low heat for 20 minutes. It doesn't say to cover it, so I'm not going to cover it. Put it back on the heat. Low heat. Turn my burner down. And I'll see you back here in a few minutes when everything is done. Alrighty, and I'm back, and I'm just going to show you the finished products. Let me see if I can tip this. There we go. So there are the meatballs in the sauce. And there are the potatoes, the beans, and the bacon. It all smells pretty good, and it tastes really good. I tried the meatballs. They taste good. The potatoes, I'm going to add a little bit more salt and pepper because I think they need a little bit more flavor and seasoning. The bacon does give them a little flavor, but they still need some more salt and pepper. But that is what is for dinner tonight. I will be making a dessert, but this video is a little bit long, so I don't want to, I don't know if it'll all upload, so I'm going to make a dessert and then upload it at the same time I upload this, so you can see what is for dinner and what is for dessert. So make sure to like, subscribe, ring the bell, leave me a comment on what you think of what I've made and what you'd like to see in the future, and have a great day, everybody. Bye bye now.